After working with over 100 plus ecom brands across almost every niche and having generated over 105 million in attributed email and SMS revenue, there is one question I get asked more than almost anything else. Should I hire someone in-house to run my retention, or should I work with an agency? And here's the thing. Most founders frame this as a simple staffing decision. Do I post a job listing or do I sign the agency contract? But it's not just a staffing decision. It's actually a strategic decision that will define how your entire retention channel performs over the next 12 to 24 months. And the difference between getting it right and getting it wrong can easily be tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars every single month just sitting on the table, which can add up to millions in revenue year over year if your brand has that scale. So in this video, I'm going to go to great detail on break down exactly on what both paths actually cost, what you get with each one, and ultimately which option gives your brand the best shot at building a retention program that drives real revenue. So let's jump in. Okay, so let's start with the in-house path. And I want to be genuinely fair here because there are real advantages to having an in-house team. First, you get someone who lives and breathes your brand every single day. They're in your Slack, they're in your team meetings, they're absorbing your product launches, your customer feedback, the culture of the brand. And over time, they build that deep tribal knowledge on your brand, right? And it's genuinely valuable. They're not splitting attention across, other accounts. And at the end of the day, your brand gets their full focus, right? So if you find an absolute rock star, like someone who, can think strategically and write great copy and design, converting emails, read analytics, and manage a full campaign calendar, that can work beautifully. But here is where most founders actually run into reality. And that's the hidden cost of going in-house. Now, that rock star that I just described, they barely exist. And when they do, they're not looking for a $70,000 salary, right? We've had brand partners that have worked with us for 3 years, and eventually they bring their retention in-house and they hire someone for a $250,000 salary, right? It's not unheard of in the world of retention marketing. Now, here's what in-house actually looks like for most brands. You hire one person and you ask them to do, 4 or 5 jobs. You hand over, strategy, copy, design, analytics, and you want them to manage the account as a whole, right? But let's be real here. From one business owner to another, that's not a job description, right? That's literally an entire department. And the cost isn't just the salary, right? You're looking at 80 to 150K a year in compensation plus benefits. You're looking at, tools, software, Klaviyo, analytics platforms. And then you have to add on the management time, right? Someone on your team has to direct this person. They have to review their work. They have to set priorities every single week. And on top of all that, you're looking at 3 to 6 months of total ramp time before they're even fully productive and operating at full capacity. So the real all-in costs of one in-house generalist is significantly more than the 150K surface salary for one person doing the job of 5, right? So what does an agency actually look like? Because I think most founders picture the wrong thing entirely, or perhaps they've had just a shitty experience working with other agencies in the past and they've been burned. So when founders hear agency, they typically picture a vendor, right? Perhaps, like I said, they've been burnt in the past, or maybe they've had a poor experience working with a previous agency, or maybe a freelancer or someone who, sends a few emails here and there, and then they drop a report, maybe once a month or something like this, and then they disappear. And honestly, with a lot of agencies out there, that's typically what you get. I'm not gonna pretend otherwise. Okay, I run an agency, so I see this happen all the time. But let me be clear. That's not what an elite agency partnership looks like. Not even close. The problem isn't the agency model itself. The problem is that most agencies operate like vendors instead of operating like an extension of your team. And that one distinction changes absolutely everything. An elite partnership is a team that embeds into your actual team. We have full channel ownership end to end. They're going to proactively create and execute on strategy, and they're going to be held accountable to those real business outcomes, right? So what you're actually investing in when you work with an elite agency is you're not just hiring a service provider. You're basically plugging a full team of specialists into your operation, into your company for less than a senior hire. And what I mean by that is that we generally have, strategy, copy, design, analytics, account leadership, and each one of these people is an expert in their own lane. And they're operating against your retention KPIs from day and week one. And so when you hire an elite partnership, you also have what we call cross-brand intelligence. And this is just a fancy way of saying pattern recognition across a bunch of different brands. Think about this. Who do you think has a better grip and understanding of the marketing industry or of the marketing landscape? Someone who only has access to one brand and is operating in sort of a silo, or someone who has access to hundreds and dozens of brands and can see patterns and spot patterns and see what's happening and what's moving the needle across all these different brands in the e-com niche? The latter, right? Because they just have more experience and more exposure to different things. The third thing is you just have zero ramp time with an elite partnership. What I mean by that is when you look at someone who you have to bring in-house, you got to train them, you got to train them on your brand, your ethos, your this, your that. Before they're fully operational, it might be a month, 2 months, 3 months, sometimes even more. With an elite partnership, you have the audit, strategy, and execution starting in week one. There's no lag time here. And that's just because of the systems that agency has built and put in place that allow it to execute at such a rapid pace, right? The fourth is an elite agency. When you invest in that, you have true channel ownership. And that means a partner that's accountable for the outcomes as opposed to not just tasks that they're pushing, right? Oh, you pay us for 8 emails, we're going to execute 8 emails. That's a vendor, okay? That's not an elite agency partner. So these are the things that make the difference between a typical run-of-the-mill cookie-cutter agency and an elite growth partner that's actually embedding into your team and enabling you to get better results overall. So what does that team generally look like when you sort of pull back the veil on these agencies? It's a full specialist crew, and that generally consists of, in the world of retention marketing, for example, you get a retention strategist. This is someone who understands the lifecycle architecture and actual roadmap to get you from where you're at right now to drastically improve, whether that's the RPR, the repeat purchase rate, the revenue per recipient, the lifetime value, AOV, etc. You get a copywriter who is conversion focused when they come to create the messaging, right? You really want to make sure that you're getting someone and a partner that understands consumer psychology and can write around that so that we actually get people to take action. You get a designer specialized in verse and actually generating and producing beautiful, high-performing email designs that guide the end user and the end subscriber to take the action that you want them to do in the copy. And then, of course, you get both an analyst that is data-driven optimization. They understand the principles of reading data, understanding it, synthesizing it, and then drawing analysis there to then feed back into this loop system to all the other agency departments. And then, of course, you have an account lead that really just handles the coordination and the execution of everything that we have here, right? So when you tally all of these things up, in a general, for example, here in Miami, you have mid-tier benchmarks. When you tally all of this up, these 5 full-time hires can range anywhere from 380 to 505K a year, right? So that is a very, very big aspect of an agency that is a growth partner that is not just delivering tasks, but also embedding in your team and helping you execute all of this, is that you're saving $380,000 to $500,000 a year because you're hiring the best team for less than the cost of one hire. Make sense? Now, let's talk a little bit about cross-brand intelligence, because this is something that an in-house team never actually gets exposure to. Like I said earlier, an in-house team is really only exposed to one brand, yours. And while they become very good at understanding your brand, its customers, your tone, and what sort of moves the needle and gets people to convert, they ultimately lack one of the biggest things that the correct and the right marketing partner agency can help you unlock, which is cross-brand intelligence, right? We, for example, send hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails per day for all of the brands that we manage. Across those emails, we come to understand what subject lines work best for different brands and different niches, what preview texts actually lead people to actually click and open, and ultimately what sort of creatives perform best in these emails that actually get people to take action, and of course, what copy angles actually get people to take action on your email. So that's something that we as an agency have incredible insight into, and we can see this because we've worked with hundreds of brands across different niches, and ultimately we have a very strong grip and understanding of what makes people move when we're talking about conversions, right? So up until now, I really just want to emphasize that a vendor completes tasks, right? But when you have that growth partner, they own the outcome. There's zero ramp. The audit to strategy to execution is very quickly, and it happens from week one, right? And ultimately, you don't have to manage an elite team. We manage ourselves. We own the results, right? So let's talk about side by side on what really matters for you so you can make the best decision as a brand owner or e-com manager in regards to your retention marketing program. In-house, 100 to 150K a year for one generalist. You have a 3 to 6 month ramp time, and ultimately they work in a silo, right? They learn from one brand. Versus an elite partnership, you're going to have a fraction of the cost for 5 specialists that are all experts in their field. You have week 1 execution, and then you have that intelligence for hundreds of brands. And you can see right here, these are just a ton of the different examples of our work. So again, if you want to, if this sounds interesting at all and you want us to take a look at your actual retention marketing program and identify any gaps that would take you from where you're at right now to a significantly better position, then let us know. I'd be happy to take a deep dive into your brand and perform an audit and then give you those findings. And whether or not, if we work together or not, at the end of the day, my role, my job is to give you insight as to what would allow you to get from where you're at right now to a much better position. So if that makes sense, go ahead and click below. There's a quick little landing page where you can see a short little VSL, see if we're a good fit, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.